This crowd rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland went to the lane, lobbed to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. We thought we might have to wait a little bit longer to find out who was going to be the Cavs opponent in the next round. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending how you look at things, the Milwaukee Bucks blew quite the lead in the final seconds of the game. And we know that the Cavs are going to be playing the Indiana Pacers on Sunday. Joining me today, as always, is my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Really excited for this series. I think it's the best basketball series, that they could have had in the second round. Of anyone in the 3 to 6 range. I thought Indy was the toughest test in that group, and they're going to get to go prove themselves against much stiffer competition than they had in the form of the Miami Heat.
Totally agree. In my eyes, Indiana is the third best team in the Eastern Conference. And joining us today to help break it down, Tony East from Locked On Pacers. Tony, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm really looking forward to the series, which is perhaps the least informative regular season matchups ever for a series that I've ever had in my life for a playoffs.
It's not the first time, because when we did the Knicks series a couple years ago, we're like, every single one of these games, the Cavs were missing Jared Allen for almost all of them. Darius was missing time. Like, it seemed like there was never a regular matchup, but you're right. I think, you could probably say 1-1, but even there, Tyrese Haliburton played like a half of, the Pacers win in that game. From a Cavs standpoint, those two games happened in January. Max Strus was getting integrated into the lineup. He was coming off the bench in favor of Dean Wade at the time. And then we saw those two late season games were about as uninformative as possible when it comes to what the playoffs are going to look like.
You aren't expecting the Pacers to illegally play 3 two-way players plus 2 of their end-of-bench guys? Yeah, those games are rather uninformative for this. And yeah, Haliburton missed half of one game and the entire other one, right? Like that, even if that alone makes it very challenging and makes this all the more fun because we have no idea what the chess match or battle is really going to look like from two coaches who have had great seasons being tactical.
Yeah, it's a pretty dope matchup, to be honest. And like I've said a few times that I do think both teams are going to have like we're playing someone pretty competent all of a sudden, kind of shell shock after like Indy just had their way offensively with Milwaukee pretty much the entire series. Through 4 games, I think they'd assisted on 76% of their field goals, which is like a bananas number. They're a high assist team, but not normally like 12, 14% higher than second best. Tony, what did you see from them in that Bucks series? Did anything surprise you, or was it a spot where it's a little hard to evaluate because that Bucks team was not in their best shape?
Yeah, it was really interesting because I picked the Pacers to win in 7 games. I thought they'd be better, but they were even better than I thought they would be. And my big takeaway for why I was a little wrong about that is, and something that I think they'll be hopeful to do again for every series they play for the rest of their lives, they generated a good shot like whenever they wanted, right? They'd come down the floor outside of the second half of game 3, which was the Bucks' only win. They'd get across the timeline. They would get into their what they call random offense. One action here, one action there. The Bucks are rotating. All of a sudden, someone's out of position, or someone's not ready for what's coming next, or it's not a good chance for the Bucks to switch, what they did quite a bit. And the Pacers would have Pascal Siakam being defended by a small guy, or Tyrese Haliburton with somebody he could get into the paint against, whether that was for a pass over his own shot or a favorable matchup with some other players who have improved as rim attackers either this season or throughout their careers. And they took advantage of that. Like, it was extremely easy for them to score. It's funny because every time I go to check, I'm like, okay, the Pacers surely are leading the playoffs on offensive rating. Oh, they're second behind the Cavs by like 20 points. But they still scored very easily in the first round. And not that the Bucks were like an awesome defense, but they were top 12. And during the regular season, I thought there would be some more resistance. They do have size. They do have Giannis. But outside of that second half of game 3 and like a little bit of tripping over themselves in game 5 a couple days ago, they could just score whenever they wanted, and that made it easy for them to kind of set the terms of engagement every game.
Something.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead, Justin.
I was just going to say, Indiana, the random offense, as you said, what they do with the pick and roll and stuff like that, I just felt like such a bad matchup for the Bucks. I think I picked the Indy in 5 or 6. I can't remember, and obviously, I was assuming Dame was going to remain healthy throughout the series. But even prior to Dame getting hurt, I think it was clear that it was just such a different matchup. And when you have, Brook Lopez playing drop defense, when you have Bobby Portis out there, like that, they're just not equipped to handle kind of what Indy's bread and butter is offensively. And to Carter's point, I think this series is going to be a shock to the system for both teams, because I was looking at it, and Indy's and Miami's defenses were identical, basically, post All-Star break. You look at some of the regular season numbers, Miami was a bit better shooting from 3 in comparison to Indiana. But despite those numbers, I don't feel that's true. Like, I understand that over an 82 game sample, that's kind of how things shook out or whatnot. But how you're going to attack Indiana defensively is dramatically different. Miami had 2 weak spots that you could pick at consistently in Tyler Hero and Kel'el Ware. Indiana actually has a point guard, and not only a point guard, one of the best playmakers that we've really seen in Tyrese Haliburton, where Miami didn't have a point guard. And I think that changes how those 3-pointers get generated in such a dramatic way. I just think it's going to be so different for both teams from what they were playing in the first round.
Tony,
if you want, go ahead, Carter.
I was gonna ask you to the point about Indiana's defense not having a tremendous amount of weak points. How many times do you think the Cleveland Cavaliers scored less than 100 points this regular season?
Well, I was actually going to bring that up earlier, but wasn't sure if it made sense. We were talking about if the regular season mattered at all. Like, wasn't that their worst game by far offensively? Was that first one?
One game under 100 points, and it was against your Indiana Pacers.
And I remember the Pacers defending pretty well in that game, but not so well that it's like, oh yeah, they should have completely shut down one of the best offenses in the league.
They had a bad shooting game for sure, but still.
It was such a wonky game because, the Cavs were up at half, Haliburton's out, the Cavs go up by 16, and I think they just took their foot off the gas. Like, I think they were riding like a 15-game winning streak at that point, and, they're up 16, Haliburton's not playing, and then Indy just goes full court press. The Cavs not only blow the lead, they end up getting blown out. It was a massive swing in the last 18 minutes of that game. Obviously, as I said, Max Strus was working his way back. No Ty Jerome in that game, and then they played the following game. No Haliburton for that one. So we really don't have a lot of useful data in this series. Yeah. Obviously, DeAndre Hunter hasn't played against Indiana at all either. So we're kind of flying blind. But I do find it interesting because I do think that these are teams that do play similar styles, at least to some extent.
Yeah, the shock to the system thing is going to be fascinating. Like, if you look at full season stats, you're gonna miss a little bit of the boat with the Pacers just because they started so bad. They were 9-14 and not like doomsday bad, but they couldn't score against the Nets and they couldn't stop the Hornets and lost all these terrible teams where it's like, man, are these guys just going to be the 10 seed the whole season? And they've had the 4th best record in the NBA since the NBA Cup, and a lot of their numbers since then, particularly on defense, are much better, and that's how they got to be an actually above average defense this year, is because of the rise they had then. They had practice time, they got better, Andrew Nembhard returned. That obviously alone would have boosted things. Ben Shepherd returned right after. So that's a big part of it, but the weak points part, and I think that's become a theme that people have written about for this playoffs, is teams love to attack weak points. That's almost as important as the star parts of the battle. Haliburton's been getting picked on at times in the postseason. He even talked about himself not being the greatest defender after their Game 5 win, right? It is part of what he knows himself to be, which is part of it. He's a good team defender. He's very aware of what's going on, but they have been very good in spite of that. They have had a lot of guys get better defensively, but I think that will be where the Pacers have to figure out, okay, if we're not going to get run off the floor by a Cavs team that had a 130+ offensive rating in the first round, we're going to have to figure out where to put Tyrese Haliburton, how to defend on a string for 48 minutes. Because, it's happened to every team, right? I'm not breaking any news by talking about Avalanches, but you mess up for 3 minutes of defense, you're down 15. You just can't do it.
Mm-hmm. Is that where, if you, as on the Pacers side of the ledger, Is that where you're the most concerned? Just their ability to hang offensively with the Cavs, or is it, or do you have similar concerns on the defensive end in terms of the offense being able to get going against obviously this super potent front line in Mobley and Allen?
I think the Cavs defense is very good, and the size is going to matter against the Pacers. This is not to discredit the Cavs, but if they stop the Pacers for an entire series, they'll be the first team to do it, in the Haliburton, Carlisle kind of era. I am worried about the other end of the floor way more than that. Like, the Cavs could have had as many as 4 All-Stars. Like, they had that many guys who were worthy, and like their weakest of those guys just shot 75% for a whole series and like just dunked all over people for
more steals than misses against the Miami Heat.
Yeah, right. And for all the things Miles Turner's good at, like if you take one step away from Jared Allen because someone else on your team got beat, okay, the ball's just over your head and in the basket. So, and the rebounding battle has very much skewed towards the Fro in those Texas on Texas battles down low. So I think if the Pacers can guard a little bit, that will help a lot, because I think they'll be able to score enough, but getting stops will be quite the chore, I think, for them. And that's true of everybody against the Cavs. Just ask the Heat. We just saw it. But there's a lot of particulars that make me think the defense will be the story of the series.
Yeah, and both teams are very similar in terms of how they perform offensively in transition. Both teams are in the top 5 in terms of transition offense. Both are, the Cavs are 11th in transition defense. Indy's 14th. Half-court offense, both of these teams are great. Indy's 6th in half-court offense. Cavs are number 1 in half-court offense. Half-court defense is where there's a bit of a difference. Cavs are 5th, while Indiana is 16th. I want to get your perspective on the defensive strength of Indiana's front court, because Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam definitely had reputations of being very strong defenders. It hasn't felt like they've been as good this year, but maybe some of that is skewed by me watching more early season matchups. How do you feel about them defensively and how they match up in particular with the Cavs bigs? Because I really do feel that Mobley and Allen versus Siakam and Turner matchup is going to be one of the most important parts of this series.
Yeah, a lot of stuff that Turner got better at as the season went along defensively, because he was top 5 defensive player of the year twice. Like he at one point was a game wrecker on that end of the floor. I think he's still leading the playoffs in blocks, which if he does again will be the second time of his career. He's still talented on that end. Like when they were struggling, it wasn't really like he looked worse, but it wasn't necessarily his fault that the whole game he's being asked to cover for someone else who got beat on the perimeter. It's like, Miles Turner, step over and stop him at the rim or they're going to score. And you don't want to have to use the mousetrap that much. You should just eradicate the mice, right? Like he's very good, but they didn't. But this season he got a lot better, like 2-man game synergy, I would say, especially with the Pacers' good defenders, like defending pick and rolls with Nembhard and Nesmith have looked a lot better. They've been able to mix in coverages a little differently in a way that plays to Turner's strengths, and that's really helped their defense. And yeah, Siakam last year and even at times really this year was a little flimsier than his rep on defense, but like there's not a bigger switch in scheme than going from Nick Nurse Toronto Raptors style, and he was playing for Darko the last year, but still, to the Pacers, right? So there's new terminology. You're doing way different things naturally, and he's gotten much better as the season has progressed. So their 2 most sizable players they play are good defenders. Their reserve front court guys certainly have some weaknesses in Thomas Bryant and Obi Toppin. Like they played those guys mostly out of like, hey, we have 6 fouls for Giannis necessity. In the first round, Toppin's been a good playoff performer before. Jarris Walker will hit the floor certainly, and he has a nice defensive reputation. But the Siakam and Turner's growth on that end of the floor is actually a big part of the Pacers' turnaround, because you are right that they have at times looked like they've taken a step back on that end, but they needed them to be better to save their season, and they have been.
Yeah, something I'm really, really interested in is what kind of scheme Carlisle comes out of the gate with and how they guard the pick and roll. Like, the Cavs were pretty, like, they kind of deviated from their regular season in the sense that they really did go hunt Tyler Hero. They kind of, in my opinion, Justin, feel free to disagree, they were kind of a team like, we're just going to keep running our stuff until you break. They weren't like mismatch hunters. They're not like the Celtics. But in that Heat series, they really did pick at the scab of Tyler Hero before they decided to pick at another scab of Kel'el Ware in the games in Miami.
This is a lot of slander for an Indiana Hoosier. I'm very upset.
I know. But you know, so they kind of did that. I'm going to imagine they're going to do the same thing with Haliburton. And if they're able to get that switch, how do you think that Indy's going to play that? Because switching feels really dangerous for Haliburton. Like, I don't think you want him trying to like wrestle Jarrett or Evan in the post over and over and over again. You know, at a drop is what I think, you know, a guy like Turner is most comfortable with, but like,
good luck.
Mobley and Darius, or I'm sorry, Donovan and Darius are like two of the best drop defense attackers in the NBA. Like, what do you think they will do versus what they should do?
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like, the first round gave us no indication because the whole defensive plan is like, okay, Giannis step 1, 2, and 3, and maybe even 4, and then everybody else figure that out later, right? And last year they had Brunson and the rest of the Knicks who like weren't. You know, this is the most like potent team offense they'll have played in this era of their team that they'll have to kind of sort stuff out, because it's very easy for me to say, I bet Haliburton starts the game on Max Strus, right? Okay, that's great. Max Strus goes and sets a screen to start a possession, and now what? Like, are you just giving something up? Is Strus just going to be wide open for a 3 immediately? Gary Trent just made a trillion threes against the Pacers in the first round, right? Like, it's not that obviously helps like sometimes, but it's not that simple. And he's going to get caught in transition opportunities because of a Strus screen, whatever, in those matchups. So, yeah, I'd imagine they send Turner up higher because of that. Try to get those guards to have to turn the corner or see another body or just give themselves time to scram and have the big man get back. But hey, good luck. Like, that's hard. Everybody has tried this. Like, if I can think of it, obviously an NBA coach could think of it, right? So maybe someone's coming from the weak side to tag Allen coming to the basket. Oh, look, Donovan Mitchell has become a better passer this year. Darius Garland's an awesome passer. They'll just throw the skip pass over the top. Like, they're going to have to be really connected, which is like everybody's favorite buzzword for just not messing up basically when you're rotating. And that's where the Bucks fell apart against the Pacers, right? They would stop the first action and the second one, and the third one they were like, oh crap, we don't know what to do, or I'm not ready for whatever this is. And if the Pacers can't have that, but the Cavs force you to mess up because they have a lot of good players. So, you know, if you involve Haliburton in the action, which I imagine they'll try, or if you just keep running whatever the Cavs want to run with their 2 all-star level ball handlers, yeah, they're going to generate good shots, like a lot. And so the Pacers can't have these breakdowns, or they're just going to get run out of the gym sometimes.
It does feel, sorry, Justin, I'll toss to you in just 1 second. It does feel like they, you know, there are, when you're coaching up a playoff defense, like you kind of are on one end there are 2 ends of the spectrum. One end is simplify so no one messes up, but like, you know, talent will kill you. Or go way complicated, really rely on a lot of crazy rotation, high effort, high focus things, and like your ceiling might go up, but your floor goes way down. It does feel like Indy has to lean towards the latter end of the spectrum and just depend on their guys to not screw up. As you
and
noted.
Also, like, they just played Giannis, like, more complex. If you mess up something complex, it's like it looks so bad. Like, there's like a wide open path to the basket. And I think they did a really good job with their Giannis scheme, but there were just some moments where like, oh, so obviously somebody just messed up. Like that's the best player in the series walking to the rim. So that's where the complicated parts come in, is like one guy messing up causes basically everybody to.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how both teams attack one another to start off the series. As Carter mentioned, the Cavs did, you know, go hunting a little bit more than we saw in the regular season. And the interesting thing about that is they don't go to, you know, hunt out a weak defender in isolation. It's, hey, we're going to run, you know, a double drag here with, you know, Max Strus, which I assume Haliburton's going to start on him, one of the bigs, and we're going to count on this flowing into a pick and roll. We're going to be able to generate good looks here. It's not just about attacking you individually as a defender. It's about causing the defense to break down. And one of the things I'm curious about is how you anticipate Indiana attacking the Cavs defense to start, because obviously, you know, the pick and roll and pick and pop game has been a big part of the Pacers offense. Where do you see them targeting the Cavs on the offensive end?
Yeah, it's funny you would talk about the Cavs going kind of against their style by mismatch hunting, because the Pacers never do it either, right? Like, that was what struck me at the end of Game 5 of the game they just played against the Bucks a couple days ago. Like, late in the game, they very often were just, oh, Siakam has a small on him, and they would dump it into him. Like, they never play like that. And I kept thinking, man, if they lose, it's going to be to me because they were so focused on like mismatch hunting. Guess what? It worked. Siakam's really good, right? They won the game, but it doesn't feel like that's how they're at their best, and they're just hard to prep for, right? Because what they say it's random, like it's easy to call it random. It's not to them, right? They know what to do. They know how to flow from action to action. The ball never sticks side to side. Big man's the fulcrum. It's flipping around. Sometimes that's pick and roll. Sometimes that's dribble handoff. Sometimes that's just there's not a lot of off ball screening. Whatever you want to call it. It's like it's random to us. It's not random to them. The only reason I say that is because there's not like a bread and butter, like one action outside of crunch time when it's like, Siakam's setting a flat ball screen for Tyrese Haliburton that they're going to do that's going to crush a team over and over and over again. It's just because it's so hard to scout or like know what's coming. That's what their secret sauce is. Like Joe Mazzulla said last year, the Pacers got swept by the Celtics, right? Handled in a 4-0 series. And Joe Mazzulla said that was our hardest series. Like that was the hardest series we played to prep for and be ready for because they just stress you out in so many ways that you have to be locked in for 48 minutes defensively or they're going to score a lot. And the Pacers' issue in that series wasn't that they didn't score. They scored a lot. They just couldn't stop the Boston Celtics with the best offense of all time. So I don't know necessarily that there's they're going to pull Darius Garland into every action and try to, make him defend a screener or make him defend a ball handler. Like the Pacers ball handlers, Nesmith, Nembhard, everybody has gotten so much better at attacking when they get by a man or, taking space in front of them to make a defense rotate. And they can all make enough shots now that the Pacers will just trust anybody to do anything. They didn't have a single 30-point score in a single game in the first round, right? They just go from thing to thing and whoever it is can score. All those guys have grown in ways to make the system work. So it's not, they have not been as much of a pick on the weak point thing. It's not that they're not doing that, but they just trust everybody to score and they have the depth to do it. So that was a very long-winded, non-specific answer to say they're not going to attack anything specific. They're not just going to have this like, oh my gosh, the Cavs can't stop this one thing. They're just the way they play. That's it. That is their stressor on defenses.
And that's one of the benefits of having so many high IQ players out there, right? Like they're able to read and react and see, what's available to them, where they're able to put in their best work. Just like Zoom AI Companion helps us out. Carter, don't you dare shake your head. Only you can do your best work. Zoom AI Companion can help you do the rest, like automatically taking notes, answering meeting questions, and helping you respond to your coworker. Available at no additional cost with eligible paid plans. Work happy with Zoom AI Companion.
I thought that was one of your better disguised reads,
awesome.
And that's why I was tickled by it because I saw it, but I was like, but I don't know if anyone else is going to see it coming. So very well done, sir. Tony, I actually do have, one very specific thing I'm actually really curious about in this series, and it is having to do with Pascal Siakam. He is one of the very few players that I saw this season that the Cavs had a really hard time figuring out how to stop. He is a special blend of chaotic that allows him to score on our bigs in post situations. I wouldn't say that's what you want to build the whole plane out of, but like it's not, there are a lot of guys who, if they try to post up Evan or Jarrett, they're just dead on arrival, especially if the post starts like 12 feet out. Siakam is an exception to that. And also, I think Siakam is one of the best positioned players to punish the Cavaliers' switching scheme that they leaned on for much of the regular season because of his post acumen, because of his handle, where you have to put two on the ball, and his movements are chaotic enough that I think it's hard to double in a way that doesn't leave you really exposed. Like timing the double is really hard with that kind of chaotic stop-start. He's like the way Darius Garland is a stop-start player when he attacks the rim. That's Pascal Siakam post-ups. I never exactly know when it's going to start, when he's going to actually make his move to the rim. He's really physical. It's hard for guys like Sam Merrill, Max Strus, who can hold their own in other switch situations. Like if they're running pick and pop, I'm totally cool with Max Strus taking 7 seconds on Miles Turner. That's fine. That's a perfectly acceptable outcome to me. Less so with Siakam. So I'm interested in two things. One, are the Cavs going to switch those actions and let Siakam get favorable post mismatches? And then the second thing I'm curious about, in that Cavs win early in the season, the one without Haliburton, Siakam was murdering them in the first half. And they went to a 2-3 zone in the second half. And I think Siakam got like 3 shot attempts the rest of the game. Do you think that that zone is something that the Cavs can maybe lean on in this series, knowing how dangerous Indy can be shooting the basketball?
The zone combo. Yeah, so first for just Siakam, he's got a good enough 3-ball this year that's actually like oh crap, we got to think about that kind of shot as a defense. And he's always been money from elbows and in, right? Like effective enough that you're on him there. And so because of those two things, you're always sticking to him, and he's got a lot of craft, right? He's got an up and under. He hit one on Giannis in the first round, and I was like, how did he even get that over the rim? He can fade. He's got the post fade that everybody knows, and he's like quick when he spins. You can't lean on his shoulder because he'll just feel it and get around you, and you can't sag off because he'll turn around and shoot over you. And it's like, it's a 2.10 footer. Most defenses are like, yeah, whatever. But he makes enough of them that you have to panic about it. And so even really good defenders have to battle with technique. There's a lot of young bigs in the NBA that, this is just a theory I've had for a while, that like they don't guard post-ups that much coming up anymore with just the way basketball is like changed. I don't think Jared Allen and Evan Mobley apply to this, but like that's a lot of the games where I think Pascal Siakam's at his best, where it's just some like young forward who's like, I don't know, I don't even know how to do this. I've never had to do this before. How are you supposed to stop this? Mobley, obviously defensive player of the year, knows the tricks of the trade, and Jared Allen's amazing. So he can cut up any kind of defender because he has so much technique and ability. But zones have been a thing. I mean, so no Haliburton was a big part of it working in that game specifically. I wrote a story about this during the season. Like so much of the zones against the Pacers were when bench groups were on the floor, right? TJ McConnell obviously not thought
not
of
a
as
zone buster.
Yeah, well, he was in the first round. He would just like wheel to the elbow and fling it over the Bucks like over and over again. I thought, what is happening? How is this working? But it was. But like Toppin really struggled to start the season from deep, and Ben Mathurin isn't decisive enough with his catch and shooting at times. Like teams have been really willing to go zone.
If there's one guy the ball sticks with.
Yes. Teams have been willing to go zone against the Pacers bench because of who the units are. But in the playoffs, 1, they mix and match more, and 2, the Cavs, the Bucks, and the Thunder were 3 of the only teams that were like, yeah, we'll go zone against the starters. Who cares? And it helped that Haliburton was out, that they lost a very key shooter and setup man. But the Pacers, for some reason, every so often they see a zone and they're like, wait, what? What is this sport? What do we do? How does, and they, in the first round, they never had that problem. They see a zone, they'd immediately recognize it, they get into their thing, and they'd score against the Bucks. So I wonder if they'll be ready for the Cavs defense zone defense because of that game that you referenced. But it has been a thorn in their side very often throughout the season, and the Cavs one is just different because of their front court size. And like, even does Dean Wade ever mess up ever on defense? Like that dude's always in the right spot. His angles are amazing. So
feels like a big
all their
game
big
series.
guys are just awesome. So that zone will be better than the Bucks zone, right? So if it bogs the Pacers down at all, that will be a problem. If I'm the Pacers, I have confidence because of the way they handled zone in the first round. But their regular season record against zone was like, okay, we probably need to be better against this. So that is certainly something, especially when it comes to Siakam, because there's 5 people standing right around you in your favorite spots in a zone to think about.
Yeah, I'm going to be fascinated to see kind of what defensive strategy the Cavs use, because only Miami uses more zone than the Cavs. The Cavs used a ton of it in the regular season. They also were incredibly switch heavy. And I just don't know if you can be as switch heavy when you're talking about a Haliburton Siakam pick and roll. Like, I think you want to fight through that as much as possible. Cavs, for the most part, they trust their guys defensively. Like, they don't try to hide Darius or Donovan. They trust them to stay in front. Sometimes they, on the switches, they get mismatches, right? Like, I've brought this up before, but nobody has defended more Jason Tatum shots this season than Darius Garland. And that's because Boston's going to hunt those, situations. And Darius, like, he's giving up a lot of size, but he is a very good screen navigator. He does a terrific job of that. Donovan's, if you look at the numbers, is a little less strong when it comes to screen navigation, but both of those guys are going to stay in front of their guys. I just don't know if you want to be in a situation where you're allowing Siakam to get onto Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell in those spots. I think you're going to try to get guys to fight through in those situations. I'll be interested to see if they go zone. I'll also be interested to see the difference in how they defend the pick and roll with Pascal Siakam versus the pick and pop with Miles Turner. Because I expect that to be two completely different strategies. But
I think they got to switch that, dude. I really do, because
I agree with that. I agree with the Turner one.
Because at the end of the day, you look at that Heat series and the story of it for Miami offensively, other than was that they could not crack the Cavs shell. You know, they would switch, or they'd fight over the screen and stay connected in front. They just didn't have to go 2 on the ball against anyone on Miami at any point, really. And I think I've said this all year, the Cavs have not been the best defense in the NBA this season. I still believe in their shell defense more than any other team, you know, because that means everything's functioning. And when everything's functioning, you've got a Mobley or an Allen who is able to switch on the perimeter, and another rim protector that never had to leave the back line in the first place. And I think the more you can do that, like, you have a talent advantage against this Indy team. Sorry, Tony. I think this Cavs team, has more top end scoring talent. So like, as long as you don't let that Indy machine get whirring, like, you've got a much better chance. So like, and I cannot think of a more different outcome than like an AJ Green, Brooke Lopez defended pick and pop, than Max Strus or DeAndre Hunter and Jared or Evan, guarding that action. And I do think, to that end, this should be a big Dean Wade series, because it should be a big DeAndre Hunter at the 3 series. Because if you're able to put DeAndre on Tyrese, and again, I don't think DeAndre is like an elite perimeter stopper, but that action is so switchable. And if I'm going to die to Miles Turner post-ups on DeAndre Hunter, I guess I'm just going to die. I just feel like that's...
Hey, ask the Bucks about that in Game 4. They died.
Well, and sometimes, like, and that is the thing about this series, is both these offenses are so good. Sometimes they're just going to win, and like, I think I think both teams, there's going to be a real test of like, of confidence and will. Win, because I think there are going to be stretches in this series where either team scores 5-6 possessions in a row, and it's not because the other team made some huge mistake.
There's been some shocking moments in this NBA playoffs, some crazy game winners. One of my most like, wait, what moments was, you talk about the Cavs shell defense. I look at the box score at halftime. It's Heat Cavs Game 3. The Heat are 9 for 20 from deep, and they're down by over 20 points. I'm like, what happened in the game? How could they not keep up? They're on fire.
That was the whole series pretty much, with the exception of Game 4, because they just totally quit. But like, we were sitting there, Carter and I were at games 1 and 2, and at halftime of each game, we're like, Miami's shooting like 50% from 3 and they're down 10. and you looked at it, and it basically was, they were shooting lights out on contested 2s. And we were sitting there being like, this is going to fall apart. You are not going to be able to sustain this. You are not getting the shot quality that is going to allow you to keep up with the Cavs. And I think they just kind of broke after a little while. They gave it the best shot.
I think everyone thinks that.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think even some of their exit interviews reflected that. One thing I'm curious about, Tony, is there guys that were playing in the first round that you think are going to have a lesser or larger role for Indiana going up against the Cavs? What do you?
That's a good question, co-host.
Thank you very much.
I've actually been thinking about that, and I'm not really sure there should be a ton of shift, not because the teams have personnel that's similar, but because they just burned a lot of their front court bodies to like guard Giannis with fouls and be fine with that. And so, yeah, the Cavs don't have Giannis, but they have more front court size besides, one player. Like, they are going to be big for a lot of the games. Like, they're not going to send away Thomas Bryant. Like, they'll need a backup 5 to play for sure. Obi Toppin's going to play. Jarrett Walker maybe would be the guy who would play a little bit less, I suppose. But not. I mean, he's a valuable guy with size that can make shots. Ben Shepherd, they dusted off because he's one of their best perimeter defenders at not allowing blow-bys. Hey, look, the Cavs have 2 elite ball-handling guards. Like, they're going to need him to play. McConnell's going to play. Mather's going to play. Toppin's going to play. So I don't think so. But I'll be curious how the series kind of shifts that. Like, if the Cavs, how much do the Cavs go to whatever their reserve front court ends up being in the series, or is it just like 40 minutes each for Allen and Mobley?
It won't be. That's just
I
not
don't
what
think
Kenny
it will be
does.
either.
Kenny,
I don't think it will be either.
Kenny is just, he's been really committed to a deep rotation. With that said, it's been, if you look at just the box score and you do a quick glance, you'll see, I mean, until Darius got hurt, Darius got hurt, he went down to 9. But like when you look at games 1 and 2, you see, all right, he played 10 men. Kind of. He played 8, and then like a short shift for Dean in the first half and a short shift for Okoro in the first half. And that was kind of what he, so he played 10 nominally, but he really played 8. But like, I don't think you're going to see a lot of these 40-minute windows, because even when he does that, the Cavs bench is so good, so vital that it's just really hard to get your starters to 40 plus minutes. If Ty Jerome is playing 26-27, DeAndre Hunter's playing 26-27, like Sam Merrill's playing 22-23, like all of a sudden you're just kind of like running out of minutes to apportion.
Yeah, like, the thing is, it doesn't feel like it's a bench lineup when you always have one of Darius and Donovan out there, one of Jared and Evan, and
the best player in the league, Ty Jerome.
I was about to say, and to help bridge those minutes, you have DeAndre Hunter and Ty Jerome, who were two of
two
top
starting quality
men.
players right now.
Yeah. Right. And then, who are we going to throw, at small forward? Well, we can still have Max Strus out there. We can have Dean Wade out there. We can go to Isaac Okoro. We can go Sam Merrill. I am interested to see who Kenny goes to, because
I was wondering that, is this the series Kenny tell me if I'm wrong, it feels like every time he has to make a decision, he's like, I want the shooter, I picked the guy who can shoot better. Like, is this the series he like kind of indexes towards defense a little more with those decisions? I'm not sure.
I think if I'm Kenny, because like I think I was really, really pleasantly surprised by Sam Merrill in the last series. I wouldn't say I was disappointed by Isaac Okoro, but like it was very clearly not going to be his series very quickly. And I do think that they are going to need to index on positional size a little bit more in this. Indy's just so big, and that the Pascal post-ups loom. Jarris Walker is just rugged, super physical. Obi Toppin can be a terror in transition. He's not like a post-up threat, but like they just have a lot of big dudes. Even Mathurin's like a very big wing. And I do wonder if this is a Dean series more than a Sam series. So maybe Sam still plays, but like I think positional size for defensive purposes makes a lot of sense, especially if you're getting your playmaking somewhere else. But like I also just think like you're going to need to be able to attack them in multiple spots. That's why I kind of like more minutes of DeAndre at the 3, playing alongside Darius, Donovan, Ty, 2 of those guys at all times. Just you can constantly be attacking, because I think the ball pressure from Indy is that's like my number one like subplot for Indy defensively in the series, is how much pressure they put on you on the ball. So like I don't know, it doesn't feel like a Sam series to me, but I was pleasantly surprised at how much the Miami series was a Sam series. So I don't know.
Yeah. I didn't think the first round would be a Jarris series. He played very well. And I mentioned 6 bench guys when you asked me about that. They never played all 6 in one game, right? The first 2 games, no Ben Shepherd. Then it was no Jarris Walker, but then Mathurin got hurt. So they got both those guys in. And then in game 5, Thomas Bryant hit the floor for 1 possession for rebounding purposes. He was the guy effectively out. So they never actually played 11. It's always been 5 specific bench guys. So if you made me guess fully healthy who the Pacers reserve would be that doesn't play, I would guess to start the series it'd be Jarris Walker, but it wouldn't surprise me if after like 1 or 2 games they're like, okay, we can't stop him anyway. Let's just go small in the front court and try to score like crazy. And then Walker and Toppin and Siakam make up the reserve front court.
You suggesting Bryant would take Walker's minutes basically?
Yeah, I think you just need a center, right? The Cavs just are going to have a big 5 on the floor the whole time. And I call it the Goldilocks number when you get the right number of minutes. Like 7 minutes of Thomas Bryant is probably fine. Just hustle, get boards. But his defense is not very good. And he, either shoots 1 3 or doesn't shoot at all in the playoffs usually. So it would not surprise me if they very quickly were like, okay, that was a mistake. But I would start with the size route and see how it goes. Walker is obviously big, but and they've survived with Walker, Top, and Siakam as their reserve front court a lot, and Siakam plays with the bench groups more than any other Pacers starter. So that would not surprise me if they went to that first, but I think it will be between Bryant and Walker for their last spot. And Shepherd, no one really thinks of him, but he's just one of their better perimeter defenders, and you're going to absolutely need that all the time in this series.
One thing that I just looked up, because I was like, I felt like Bryant played a healthy amount against the Cavs this year. Played more minutes against the Cavs than any other team this season. Played 70 minutes.
That's right, because they didn't play the Cavs till after they traded for him, and then he played a ton in those last 2 games when it was.
He did play 5 games against them, but
the seeding, the Pacers seeding, the Cavs seeding was over. The seeding wars. I don't even know what to call those for the Cavs. It's the seeding SEEding for the Pacers. It was the SEAT seeding games for the Cavs.
The Cavs, that was basically March for them. Unfortunately, Boston wasn't able to keep up, so the Cavs were a little lackluster for the last month of the season.
I was being a psycho for weeks, being like, oh, are the Cavs going to be trying to get home court advantage in the finals in these games? Are they going to care at all? How's this going to go? They did not end up caring about that, so
it was
the Pacers benefited.
One of those weird scheduling things where they played 17 games in a row where they didn't play in the same city twice in a row.
Wow.
So it was basically a 17-game road trip. And I think going back, it was actually 22 out of 24 games, basically from February through March. So it was a tough time with not a lot to play for. And I think that showed up in the results. I'm fascinated for the Cavs to see basically who this 8th through 9th guy is on the team, and maybe even 10th, as a result of that, because Dean Wade moved ahead of Isaac Okoro in the rotation mid-series, and I really like what that length can do. But if we are still rolling out Sam Merrill as that 8th guy, it becomes tougher to play Dean Wade in those spots. It becomes tougher to play that length, because if you're always going to have one of Darius and Donovan out there and Ty Jerome comes in, that means Sam Merrill has to play at small forward, which means you are going to be smaller. Sam has done a terrific job. Those lineups have absolutely crushed it. I think that there's a possibility that they continue to crush it in the series, but you are giving up size in those matchups. So I'm curious to see how Kenny uses those guys, where they slide into the rotation. But I think I agree with you. I think for the most part, I don't see Indy changing up their rotation. I don't see the Cavs changing up their rotation a whole bit. I think it's going to be a pretty typical series of 2 feel it out games, and then we see where the adjustments go from there.
I have a question for you fellas.
Okay.
A little segment I'm inventing on the fly, which is who is the player that the opposing fan base is most likely to hate by the end of the series?
It's funny. You guys were talking about Sam Merrill. He hit 5 threes in a row, 2 feet from me when the Cavs were in Indy, that third to last game of the season. The Pacers fan base is in my mentions are they ever going to guard Gary Trent? Are they ever going to guard AJ Green? So the profile of that kind of player suggests that Sam Merrill has a good shot of that crown. And also Max Strus has a good shot at that crown for similar reasons. Max Strus is a 40% plus 3-point shooter who I feel like goes 7 for 8 or 2 for 8 in a lot of games. So there's a very good chance that he has 3 7 for 8 games. I hate that Strus guy. He never misses.
He's also a talker, and he's very physical.
That will be good again in a Pacers series. The Pacers are not afraid to respond to talkers, and that makes a lot of animosity.
It's going to make him even more annoying.
And that is fun. To be clear, I think that is fun for all. Everybody talk, get your yapping on.
I tell you who I'm prepared to hate, and it's Andrew Nembhard. I think he is going to be a thorn in their side. I feel like every good minute Indy has in this series, Andrew Nembhard is going to be involved in.
Yeah.
I think his physicality,
he's huge in this series.
His ball pressure is really, really important. I think, especially given that the Cavs are going to start so many possessions with bigger wings on Haliburton, means I think they're going to do a lot of stashing of Darius and Donovan on Nembhard, and he's going to have to create shots for them and consistently get buckets just to create, because like you can't just do the Haliburton pick and roll in perpetuity. Like to your point, a big part of this team's DNA is how many places they can kill you from. I think Nembhard has just the right amount of irritation. He's an irritant on defense and hits really ballsy shots on offense. I feel like he's a shoots better than his percentages guy in the right series. And like, yeah, that's the guy I'm prepared to like, ball my fist up and shake my fist at the screen by game 5.
I could never say
Canadian.
Yeah. I'm not about to go. Well, Mathurin, I can see myself. I can see myself not being thrilled with them. I think who I'm prepared to hate by the end of the series is TJ McConnell. I just feel like there's going to be a stretch where that guy gets 5 steals in a quarter, and I just get annoyed by his face. I think that's the way this goes. But Carter, to your point about Nembhard, I think it's important for people to realize. I tweeted this out before the podcast, but Basketball Index has Nembhard as 100th percentile perimeter isolation defender.
He's awesome, dude. He is so good.
He is nails. He is so damn good.
He is better than his percentages guy. Like most of those guys, it's because the shots they make are important, right? So you remember them, or they like sit with you. Like he hit a huge 3 in overtime in game 5 for the Pacers, and no one remembers it because Haliburton scored a lot after that. But like it was a massive shot. Like all of his iconic moments are like he hit a buzzer beater over LeBron from how many feet away? He hit a game 3 game winner in the playoffs. Like this 32% shooter. Like he's lights out when it matters, and his defense is just absurd. Ever since Brunson not embarrassed him, but like was the first guy that made Nembhard look like a not good defender last year in the playoffs. He's even leveled up since then. And you mentioned how, like putting a guard on him. A lot of teams will put their worst defender on Aaron Nesmith, and that's become harder to do now too because he's got a little bit of wiggle going towards the rim now.
Yep.
So I wonder
Those
if the Cavs will try.
Me. If you ask me, Carter, like what are you really nervous about? It's Nesmith and Nembhard swinging a game by being chaotic, getting in transition, beating up the Cavaliers. They're so physical at the point of attack, dude. It's nuts. I feel like the Cavs like got a taste of that with Davion Mitchell in terms of that physicality at the point of attack, but it's like you're going up a notch on the physicality level. Like I feel like those two are closer to what the Cavs had to deal with in Orlando last year with Suggs and Harris and Franz and all these dudes just beating you up. Like those guys are so tough.
It's going to be interesting, man. I think this series is going to be awesome. Before we get you out of here, Tony, let's get some series predictions in here. Well, you are in hostile territory. You go first.
Yeah, I've been leaning towards the Cavs since this was revealed as going to be the series. The length is challenging. I try not to be the guy who's like, oh, don't pick it in 6 because of the closeout on the road. So Cavs 6 feels right to me. I would be shocked if it was a short series. I also said that in the first round, and then it was a short series. So you never really know in the NBA these days. Maybe I'm underselling the Cavs in their 138 offensive rating. Cavs 5 is, I assume, going to be a popular
Well, if that
Cleveland
holds,
pick.
it'll be Cavs 4, I think.
I am going to go Cavs 6 or 7, but I picked Knicks in 7 last year, and the Pacers beat them. So that does not mean I am right or good at predictions.
Carter.
I'm going Cavs in 5 here. But with an important caveat that I think 4 of those wins could be tough as hell. I do not think this is a dominant Cavaliers series where they're just winning. If they win 2 games by 20, or 2 games by 20 is too big. If they win 2 games by 10-15, like I'll feel really, really good about this series. I respect the heck out of this Indy team. They just, to your point earlier in the pod, Justin, they just don't have a lot of weak links. They play a lot of guys who are pretty darn good. I think they are a little short on guys who are uber elite, which is why I think the Cavs should have the advantage in crunch time in some tight games down the stretch, which is why I'm picking Cavs in 5. But like I said this to Jason Temp on his pod earlier today, that if you were to like make me pick like a likelihood, I would chunk Cavs in 5, Cavs in 6, and Cavs in 7 in a very tight odds window. Like I don't think that me picking
I like
Cavs
that. I'm gonna steal that. I'm sorry, I'm stealing that.
Yeah, enjoy. I think you'd have to take a little tier lower for Pacers in 7. Because I do think the Cavs should be overwhelmingly likely to win this series based on all the metrics that we have in front of us and all the tape from round 1. but I think it's going to be really, really hard work, and it's going to be honestly just way closer to the test we thought Miami might be able to give this Cavs team in terms of making them win the series.
Yeah. And I've been going back and forth between 5 and 6. I think there's going to be a game in this series where Indy is just flat out playing like the better team.
If we sweep them, that would be insane.
Well, no, I don't think that's going to happen. I think Indy's going to outplay the Cavs in one of these games, and whether it's 5 or 6 is going to come down to, is there a wild shooting variance game in either direction? Like, it's, I think back to the first loss that the Cavs had against Atlanta, where you got 32 wide open threes and shot 20% on them. Like, if that happens, or if Indy shoots like 60-70% on their threes, which we've seen them do in versus the Cavs in the past, I can see that extending the series. There's no way I'm going to let you pick fewer games than me, though. So I'm going to go 5. That's where I have to go. You're not going to out-optimistic.
Here's the thing about Justin, Tony, is I try to pick these series intellectually. He picks them in a way that won't get him yelled at by our listeners because he's a coward.
No, I'm a man of instinct. I am a man of guts. I am a man of feeling. I ignore my brain when I'm making picks. I go with my heart.
That much is clear.
And it makes me right more frequently than you. Didn't you pick Milwaukee? Let's put you.
I think
you did.
I think I said it would be closer than people thought. I don't think
I said it wouldn't be. I said it was 5 games. Indy's going to clean them up.
I picked Cavs in 7 against Orlando when everyone else was saying it was going to be 5 or 6.
And I picked Cavs over the Heat in 4. I also told you that Detroit was going to win the series. And, if the last 2 minutes was called correctly, if the last 2 minutes was called correctly, they would have already won the series.
Tony, I'm sorry that you have to hear us bicker like
Tony's
this,
take. Tim Hardaway was not fouled. Anyway, continue.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I disagree with everyone, including NBA officials who said, yeah, it was a foul, our bad. So
and Josh Hart.
Yeah, I have literally no ground on the planet to stand on.
Well, I'm sorry you had to witness mom and dad fighting. It's unfortunate, but every now and then we got to do it. Tony, before we let you out of here, let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, yep. If you're watching, at Tony Arist is on the screen, but that is my Twitter handle. I finally have like a professional, boring one with just my middle initial in there. So that's where you can find me.
Mine is still nonsense. It is slapping the Cavs in Canada, and that's what it is. Thank you so much for having us, or for coming on. Make sure you guys are checking out Locked On Pacers throughout the series. Always good to be getting that perspective from another team. Big thanks to everyone tuning in live on YouTube. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chasedown's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of their review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.